Hello there, I'm playing my Monishfav and welcome back to the F1 Roundup. Here we are in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia for another episode as we go through the race that has just been in Saudi Arabia. So let's start off with the big event of the weekend. Max Verstappen in quali having engine problems in Q1, which means he couldn't set a time in Q2 and had to start from 15th. Not that that really stopped him much, but 15th, that was a disaster of a quali session. But great news for his other Red Bull teammate, Checo Perez. He was on pole. But yeah. So let's go through a bit of the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix the weekend. So obviously, Verstappen qualifying issues. Not being able to set lap time in qualifying too. So let's actually start off with the qualifying time. So Logan Sargent had an even bigger stinker than Verstappen. Had his lap deleted for track limits. And thus didn't even get to set a time. And had to get special permission because he was without the 107% time set in Q1. I think it's 107% rule. I'm not sure. But another difficult day in qualifying for Lando Norris. 19th is all he can muster. 2/10 off Nick De Vries in the AlphaTauri. But it gets worse. Piastri was in Q3. Oh dear. But yeah, another difficult day for McLaren. We'll go on in about the race disasters for Lando and Nick and Oscar. But we'll talk about Nick De Vries in his AlphaTauri. Only about 3/10 off his teammate Yuki Tsunoda, but both AlphaTauris out in Q1. Williams, Alex Albon as well out in Q1. So Q1 was Sargent, Norris, De Vries, Albon, Tsunoda out. Then Verstappen, Bottas, Magnussen, Zhou Guanyu and Hülkenberg out in Q2. Verstappen having massive problems and his Q2 time was 1 minute 49. 20 seconds slower than Bottas. But yeah, Verstappen 15th, Bottas 14th, Magnussen 13th, Zhou Guanyu 12th, Hülkenberg 11th. So both Haas out in Q2, both Alfa Romeo's out in Q2, and a Red Bull. I'm having an email. Hate it like when I'm recording, people send me emails and stuff. Dear oh dear. Okay, now into Q3. Now this was Pierre Gasly in 10th, Piastri in 9th, Lewis Hamilton in 8th, Ocon in 7th, no penalties this time, Lance Stroll in 6th, Carlos Sainz in 5th, George Russell 4th, Fernando Alonso 3rd, Charles Leclerc 2nd, Checo Perez 1st. Now, if you didn't see him a week, it was announced Charles Leclerc was going to have to take another controlled electronics, which is out of the 2 he's allotted for the season, and would take a 10 place penalty, promoting everyone from Zhou Guanyu up a slot. So Alonso started 2nd, Russell 3rd, but yeah, a good qualifying for Charles Leclerc, only 2/10 off Checo, really good. Carlos Sainz a little bit further off again, but not a million miles away. Not a terrible qualifying session for Ferrari, but if you looked a year ago, it's not looking good for the Maranello team. George Russell did very well to get his Mercedes up to 4th, but yeah, as it was, fantastic session from Oscar Piastri to get into Q3 in that shitbox that is a McLaren. So some news that came out just after the qualifying was that Lewis Hamilton's at a bit of a loss with his Mercedes car. He doesn't like it. Mercedes are struggling. Lewis is struggling with that Mercedes. It's got performance, but he doesn't feel connected. He doesn't have the confidence in it. But yeah, do we think Hamilton will stay at the end of the year at Mercedes? Answer: yeah. I think he will, unless they're really uncompetitive. And they're going to have some developments coming out. But yeah, I think Mercedes come the end of the year might be a bit better. So we'll talk about the race now. First corner, Alonso's in the lead. He's overtaken Perez. Didn't last all that long, only a couple of laps before Perez overtook him, and then for the rest of the race, never really looked damaged. In no phased. Yeah, never really looked in danger, even on the restart. Didn't look in danger. We'll talk about the race. So there was a safety car. Lance Stroll DNF'd. He was told to stop the car by his team, and they brought a safety car out. He was in a safe place. There was absolutely no need for a safety car. I don't understand why they brought the safety car out, but they did. And it did screw over Ferrari. They finally got the tactics call right. And yeah, they got jumped by both Mercedes and Verstappen. A difficult day for Alex Albon, who had brake problems, we believe. He did say brake failure, but I'm not convinced. It was a brake failure because otherwise he wouldn't have been stopping at any of the corners. But yeah, Albon DNF, Lance Stroll DNF. Then Valtteri Bottas had to free stop. He had a very difficult day. I don't actually really know what happened to him. He just ended up at the back. Difficult day for him. Lando Norris just had very little pace. You know, he struggled again, did Lando. He only had to pit 2 times this week, but he's, you know, it is concerning that McLaren looks so shit. Because his Piastri got contact on the first lap, and both of them had to pit on the first lap. And it killed both their races, completely killed them, because they were playing catch-up for the rest of the Grand Prix. Even the safety car didn't really bring them much in. It don't look like they've got much race pace. It's not looking good for McLaren. Logan Sargent came 16th, De Vries 14th, another pretty solid outing for him. Zhou Guanyu 13th in his Alfa Romeo. Nico Hülkenberg 12th. Yuki Tsunoda 11th, unlucky not to get points, with Kevin Magnussen getting his first point of the season. Then came 2 Alpines of Gasly and Ocon. Leclerc and Sainz was 6th and 7th, so Leclerc starting 12th did well to get to 7th, but could have been better had the pit stops at the safety car fallen in his favour a bit more. Same for Carlos Sainz. Hamilton and Russell 4th and 5th respectively for Mercedes. Showed good race pace. Miss Hamilton on that medium tyre was looking dangerous, but nothing ever really came of it. Then Fernando Alonso, we'll talk a bit more about that whole Fernando in 3rd. Verstappen came 2nd, but never really got close to Perez, was 5 seconds behind him, but did nick the fastest lap, so he remains on top of the championship. And of course, Checo Perez. But the big thing everyone's talking about was Fernando Alonso. A, fantastic race from him. B, 100th podium, just about. Because he lost his podium because of the stewards. They took it away from him because he got a penalty for incorrect grid slot, which 5-second penalty. But then they're saying he didn't serve it correctly and was given a 10-second penalty, which dropped him to P4 and George Russell into P3. I didn't agree with his penalty. Aston Martin didn't agree with his penalty, so they appealed it and won. So Alonso back to 3rd. Bit silly, to be honest. Very, very, very silly to give that penalty on Alonso. But positives for Aston Martin. 2 consecutive podiums for Fernando. Obviously not a positive that Lance didn't actually finish the race. But yeah, positive for old Aston Martin. Let's go through the standings on the championship now. So in 20th is Lando Norris, 19th is McLaren teammate Oscar Piastri. Terrible start for McLaren, who had them to 19th and 20th after the first 2 Grand Prix. Not me. De Vries in 18th, Zhou Guanyu in 17th, Logan Sargent in 16th, Hülkenberg in 15th, Yuki Tsunoda in 14th, Alexander Albon in 13th, Kevin Magnussen in 12th, Pierre Gasly in 11th, Ocon in 10th, Bottas in 9th, Charles Leclerc in 8th, Lance Stroll in 7th, George Russell in 6th, Lewis Hamilton in 5th, Carlos Sainz in 4th, Fernando Alonso in 3rd, Checo Perez in 2nd, Max Verstappen in 1st, thanks to the fastest lap point he got on the very, very last lap. I don't think Checo was very happy though, because he would have been top of the championship for the first ever time. So let's talk about constructors. McLaren, no points, 10th, rock bottom, disaster. AlphaTauri 9th, also on nil points. Williams with a solitary point in 8th. Haas again with a solitary point in 7th. Alfa Romeo with 4 points in 6th. Alpine with 8 in 5th. Ferrari with 26th and 4th. Mercedes in 3rd with 38. Aston Martin also on 38, but in 2nd because they've had 2 podiums. Red Bull sort of pulling away with 87 points. That car is the fastest car ever in this era. That Red Bull looks unstoppable. Perez was brilliant. The only hope is that they've got reduced airtime in the wind tunnel. That's the only hope. But that's all there is time for to discuss in today's F1 roundup. Checo Perez won the Grand Prix, but Verstappen leads away. Alonso got his podium again, twice, I guess. But thank you so much for watching. Much love, and I'll see you all next time. Until then, see ya.